I'm so grateful, Madam Chair, to yourself and our ranking member and our witnesses. Obviously, a very important hearing. I feel like, if I'm honest, compared to our witnesses and other members of the committee, that I actually knew very little about fentanyl when this hearing was called. And I decided to go on a fact-finding mission to learn how fentanyl was impacting Utahns directly. Won't surprise you that I was shocked by the facts about fentanyl, particularly its use in Utah and the personal story of Utahns. According to the Utah Highway Patrol in Utah, there have been 900% increase in fentanyl seizures in the first 3 months of this year compared to the entire last year. It's 900% more in 3 months than the entire last year. The number of overdose deaths involving fentanyl in Utah doubled from 2019 to 2020, and the largest percentage increase in fentanyl deaths, won't surprise you, was 18 to 24, followed by 25 to 34-year-olds. Obviously, this is an increasing risk to our communities that needs local government, state government, and federal government, all hands on deck, everybody working together. I also spent time with a coalition of entities fighting fentanyl addiction, including the Utah Attorney General's Office Overdose Strategic Response Team, DEA, and the Utah State Bureau of Investigation's drug recognition experts. Additionally, I put out word to my district that I'd like to hear their stories. Within 24 hours, I was delivered 250 personal stories of the way these families have been impacted. Every one of these stories will break your heart. Every one of these stories represents not just an individual, but family and their network. And I think it's been said earlier today that it'd be hard to find any one of us that hasn't been impacted by this. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to read just a couple of quick parts of two of these stories. When my brother Adam was young, he was involved in an accident that saw him severely burned. The hospital prescribed him at what turned out to be a highly addictive opioid, and for years afterwards, he struggled with addiction, going in and out of rehab for alcohol, marijuana, and eventually heroin. In the fall of 2013, he enrolled in Utah Valley University after completing rehab with plans to get a degree in construction management. I remember the night of that September the 21st and what happened afterwards in a blur. I remember getting the call from my mom that night. I remember lowering my brother's coffin into the ground. I remember feeling numb for months, and worst of all, I remember feeling ashamed of what my brother did. Nothing can turn back what happened to my brother, but I hope that we can talk more openly about addiction, opioid use, and the deadly influx of fentanyl into our country. Addiction doesn't discriminate, and the first step to solving this problem is talking about it. Thank you for taking that step. Next story, I'm a recovering heroin addict where my addiction began with prescription opioids at age 13. I suffered a dislocated knee and was prescribed Percocet and other prescription opioids for ongoing knee injuries. My story isn't going out of the norm. By age 18, I was addicted to heroin and went through overdose, ambulance rides, being homeless, induced with a coma, went through immense trauma, put my family through more turmoil than any family should endure. In 2013, I went to treatment and have been sober since. But the story far from ends there. In 2015, I lost my older brother to a heroin overdose, and his story isn't out of the norm. His story is mine. It is all of ours. We feel like enigmas in our society that's made us into a taboo, when in reality, every family and community is affected by this. It is a societal norm that no one talks about. Currently, I work as a program director and utilization review specialist for residential and outpatient substance abuse and mental health treatment facility in Utah County, where I can work on breaking the stigma against this and other recovering addicts.